In this video, we're going to look at InfoSpark's Xero connector and how that can be used in a project management solution within Smartsheet. Xero connector gets used in lots of different ways. So it can be used in production systems, in procurement systems, but certainly the most popular use is when it's being used alongside project schedule and risk data to get a 360-degree view of the performance of a project. Now, the connector can be used to bring data from Xero into Smartsheet for reference, and that's good for tracking budgets and being able to review transactions. But it can also be used to create transactions in Xero. So the connector can be used to take some information from Smartsheet and put it into Xero. And in this demo, we're going to look at both of those modes of operation. Certainly, every customer that uses the connector is using that, what we call an inbound mode, so bringing data from Xero into Smartsheet. Everyone's doing that. And then a proportion of our customers will also use that outbound mode to take information from Smartsheet and put it into Xero. So let's get started. The demo environment we've got here is for our Foxtrot building company. And you can see in here, we've got a typical project dashboard. You might be familiar with something like this yourself. And amongst other information, we've got this bill data that's shown. And this is brought from Xero. So none of this is manually maintained. Both the dollar amounts as well as the status information is continually synchronized between Xero and Smartsheet. So let's start off by making a transaction in Xero and watching that come through to Smartsheet. So we'll go to Bills to Pay in Xero and we'll make a new transaction. So we're going to go New Bill. We'll say it's for ABC Construction, put a little test reference in there, and we'll put through a series, just a sample bill, but we'll fill in all the required information and even the optional information, just so that we can see all of that information flow back into Smartsheet. So we're going to apply a general ledger account. We're going to give it a tax rate. We're going to assign it to a project and assign it to a cost code. Now, if you're familiar with Xero, you'd know that Xero won't out of the box have this information here. So for those who aren't familiar, I'll just briefly explain what's going on here. In Xero, you can have up to 2 tracking categories, and that's what these are. So I've selected, I want to have a project tracking category with these options, and I want to have a cost code tracking category with these options. And this is really helpful for any Xero customer when they want to have a way of adding more information to every line in a transaction, such as what project relates to, what type of cost it is. Particularly when you've got this kind of situation where the chart of accounts is not set up with a lot of detail. So in this case, all of our costs of goods sold goes into one account. And so it's helpful to collect extra information about what type of, what the context is for that account. If your chart of accounts is more detailed and you've got lots of different options that are very important for reporting and for budget tracking, then that information can come through. So there's a little bit more that can be talked about. If you've got any of your own questions, please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to have a chat about how you specifically use Xero, and how we can use the way that you use Xero in the most streamlined way, or perhaps you want to have a chat about what your options are to use Xero in a slightly different way to save time. So that said, I've approved that bill, and what we want to do is see in our Blue House project, in the fixing stage, we want to see this $190 of nails show up in the bill report. So the first thing we need to do is wait a little moment, might just be a few minutes, for the data to come through, because obviously we can see those nails are not showing up on this report in that fixing stage. But while we wait for that to come through, it's interesting to point out that this report is actually structured using data from Xero. So we've got those cost code options that I went through. Maybe just to recap, I'm talking about this cost code here. All the little drop-down options there flow through, and Smartsheet is building the report out based on which transactions were associated with which cost code. So we know that when our test transaction comes through, it's going to show up in the section here. Also, just while we wait for that to come through, let's have a look at the raw data so you can get a feel for how the connector actually works. So you can see here, there's lots of different types of information. This is not the full extent of what our connector can do. This is kind of some of the more popular fields. So bringing in bills, bringing in bank transactions, bringing in our customer invoices, our purchase orders, etc. And there's a little bit more that we can bring in, like credit notes. But you can see here, this is what happens. So all of the data associated with each line of every transaction gets brought in. Plus, we've got a few special calculated formulas of our own that can just be helpful. But you can see there's a lot of columns here, maybe 50 or so. And so this sheet isn't normally used for anything other than being used in a report or maybe in a formula. But you wouldn't normally come in and actually work on this sheet itself. It's, there's a lot of columns here. It's hard to get around. So we certainly wouldn't be suggesting that you would do that, but it's good to know that this is what is really happening with these connectors. It just brings all that data in and stores it in a central location so that then we can use that data in other parts of Smartsheet. Okay, so let's go back to our bill and we'll refresh that. Okay, so there's our line that's come in for the nails, and so now you can see the line has come in from Xero with the nails. So that's data coming in. The data from here, well, like once it's in Smartsheet, it can be used for reports like you see here. It can be used for charts, graphs, and you can build automation workflows over the top of it. So everything that you would normally be able to do with Smartsheet if you had have manually brought that data into a sheet can be done with it automatically coming in. So that's inbound. So the next thing we want to talk about is outbound. Outbound, the example we're going to use here is creating invoices that would be raised for a customer based on a register in Smartsheet. So you can see here we've got some different projects and the value that they have. And there's a pretty simple workflow to get these created in Xero. We basically just say, send the data from here into Xero. And obviously we would have set up ahead of time for each of those columns to map to the correct place in Xero so that we know what the tracking categories are, what the customer's name is, and all that kind of thing. What happens is when we ask it to be sent to Xero and it's created, the connector will run and then it will automatically update this status to invoice created once it has been created. After that point in time, immediately afterwards, the invoice number will be automatically put in here by the connector so that you know what that detail is. And then from that point on, as the invoice is changed in Xero, so maybe it moves from draft to approved or it's paid, that status update from Xero will also be kept up to date in this sheet here. So you're not going to be needing to do that time-consuming checking and auditing of, okay, which invoices have been paid and which haven't. Once it's marked as paid in Xero, the rest of Smartsheet will know about that too. So I'll just refresh this and see if it's finished. It has. So you can see that $350,000 invoice has been created, and this is the invoice number. So if we go back into Xero, looking at the invoices, there's that invoice for that amount, all set up as a draft. And as this gets approved and paid in Xero, that information flows back into Smartsheet. That's an example of how that multi-directions connector can operate. Very good chance that it's not how you would necessarily want it to work. And the great thing about the connector is it's very flexible. So maybe you're wanting to do this for purchase orders instead, or maybe you're wanting to take draft invoices into Smartsheet and do the final approval in Smartsheet, or anything else. So the beauty of the connector is it's very flexible. We can map it to work in whichever way you want, whether it's a single line in the invoice. If we just jump in and show you what I mean there. Whether it's a single line in the invoice here, or if you have multiple lines, we can get the connector to work exactly the way that you need. So what we've seen here is a multi-direction connector. We build connectors for all sorts of apps, literally hundreds of different applications, and Xero is one of them. We have the same sort of connector in place for MYOB and lots of other finance and accounting systems. So yeah, if you've got any other questions, would like to know more, please get in touch.